The Hogsty is brought to you by TicketClub.com, your one-stop shop for live events nationwide. Whether you're looking for game, theater, or live performance tickets, don't sweat it. TicketClub.com has you covered. So make sure you're going there for all your live entertainment needs, and make sure you're clicking over to them from the banner at the top of thehogsty.com.
By fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Welcome to the Hogsty, DC's unofficial leading source for all things Redskins and the NFL. My name's Sean, and Steve Thomas is here with me. How you doing today, Steve?
Oh, I'm doing just awesome. You know, we are the two losers who have time to record a show in the middle of the Memorial Day holiday. You know, I don't know what that says about either one of us, but that's okay.
Nothing good.
Yeah, I mean, Memorial Day isn't so much a happy Memorial Day thing. It's a, remember what Memorial Day is all about. I hope it's good for everybody and your families.
Absolutely. Amen to that. God knows I was out last week. I am trying to get back in the saddle here of talking about the Redskins, and I'm excited to do it because we actually have some stuff to talk about today.
Of course we do.
Before we get into the meaty stuff, though, Steve, did you know we had someone competing on Dancing with the Stars?
I did know that, but see, the thing is, I've never watched it. I think I watched like 20 minutes of one episode and realized that A, I hate dancing, either watching it or doing it, and two, I watch these things and I couldn't tell who's good or bad. It just looks exactly the same to me. I mean, I would pretty much vote for who has the skimpiest outfit. You know, that would be what I would do, and that's all I can do.
A moment of brutal honesty. I love it. Well, I didn't watch the show itself. My mother is a huge fan. She became a huge fan of Josh Norman, who was the member of the Redskins that was competing on this season. Dude ended up in second place. Now, I know that you might not care about this for the majority of our listeners, but I got to say, it's pretty impressive, Steve. The lifts that they do and the way they can manipulate their bodies, it's impressive. I read some stuff.
It doesn't really surprise me that football, like pro athletes, are good at it because they have good body control and they're athletic and, you know.
Balance, all the stuff that you do.
I mean, you can't necessarily have rhythm, but, I mean, if you happen to be born with that, I think... You know, I think those athletes, there's a reason why those athletes are good at it. And you throw like some random actor out there, they can't necessarily do it, or actress.
Got it. Exactly. I was very impressed by Josh Norman's dancing skills, even as someone who doesn't
So you watched
really know
it
how to
then?
engage dancing.
How much did you watch?
I watched his dances. I didn't watch the shows on TV, but you can watch them on. You can watch Josh Norman stuff on YouTube. It's worth checking out, man. It's cool. I mean, it's kind of cheesy, it's Dancing with the Stars, but it's interesting.
Yeah, but what did Mama Conti really say? What was her report?
She came out of this. So Mama Conti, again, huge fan. This is my mother, of course. Huge fan of Dancing with the Stars. And she came out of this a huge fan, I think with a little crush on Josh Norman himself.
Hopefully Mr. Conti doesn't know that.
He doesn't. He's overseas. He's not even worried about it.
What he doesn't know doesn't hurt him.
Exactly. He's all good with it. But I'll tell you what I found was really interesting. I read an article that was saying Josh was actually taking red-eye flights to L.A., to do this show, coming back for OTAs to DC. That must have been incredibly exhausting to do. I can't imagine balancing being on a physical competition TV show and also working with the Redskins off-season activities. That's crazy.
Yeah, because it wasn't even really official OTAs. It was just workouts. Also. I mean, so that's right. Really even more dedication. It's not like they were doing group team activities. This is just him meeting the workout schedule. Listen, I mean, Josh Norman, some of you guys out there don't like him for whatever weird reason because you're a bunch of strange weirdos. But, I mean, the dude is an elite corner. And he's at the top of the food chain. Is he the very best in the league? No, probably not. But he's one of them.
Absolutely.
And he's being a leader. That's what he's doing. He's showing that I'm a leader and I can do this and it won't interfere with football because football is the most important thing. And I don't blame him for doing Dancing with the Stars. He made probably a pretty good paycheck, I would assume. They're not doing it for free,
Heck yeah. I mean, I just think his personality really comes across like that, and he seems like a really good guy. I don't remember, actually, I hate to bring this up at all, but didn't he have some kind of character knock or something that happened in his past that people were concerned about? Watching him like this take really takes the concern away. He seems like a really down-to-earth nice guy.
Well, I mean, the only character thing was the big ridiculous fight with Odell Beckham 2 years ago. But other than that, other than that, and Odell Beckham's a big punk. I mean, we interviewed the Kicking Net, if you recall that one time on the show. And the Kicking Net didn't have, a lot of good things to say about Odell.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
It was like a delayed laugh reaction. It's like, oh, yeah, okay. We had Robbie Duncan, the Kicking Net, on the show.
That's right. I was like, what the hell is he talking about? Is Steve having a stroke here on air? No, I got you now.
A little hint, Robbie Duncan was actually the Kicking Net.
Was the Kicking Net, that's right. God, we had him play a lot of roles on this show.
He had good voices. Well, there's another big thing that's happening this week. It's the new Star Wars movie. Are we excited about this? I mean, we on the show are Star Wars nerds.
Oh, yes.
I know some of you out there aren't, but, that's your loss. I don't know what to think about this one. I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to this weekend.
Dude, I'm ready to go with this one. I think this one's going to be awesome. I mean, it's Han Solo. Come on. I've heard some stuff about trouble in the production process, but it can't possibly be bad. It's got Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. I mean, come on,
He's supposedly really great in it. They replaced the director halfway through. They fired whoever it was and put Ron Howard in there as the director. I thought they kind of ruined The Last Jedi. I thought that one was a kind of a crappy way to go, and so hopefully this one will be a lot better. I wasn't impressed with that one. It kind of ruined the whole saga for me, to be quite honest.
God, you just opened a can of worms in my mind. I'm ready to just ditch the Redskins and talk about Star Wars for the rest of the day.
This is the Star Wars hour. We can't do that. And the other thing I've done recently is I've decided I went and read every Game of Thrones season 8 spoiler because I decided recently. I just decided that 18 months or whatever long it's going to be is just way too long to wait, and so I read everything. And I won't give any spoilers away, but what I can tell you is that the real nerds that study it and get all the spy photos and everything, they've figured out sort of the main structure of the season, but nobody knows the ending yet. So okay. I kind of know what's going to happen, but I don't know the result. That's the end of it.
That's good. Don't spoil that for yourself. At least allow yourself to be surprised by the conclusion.
I just can't wait that long, though.
I know. Shows take so damn long to come back these days. It's like waiting for the football season again.
I know.
It's like awful. 6 to 8 months, before the shows come back.
This is why we have these hashtag content things.
That's right. All right, well, anything else we want to bring up before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's Redskins discussion?
I think
anything new?
Nothing else is all that interesting. One other thing is go Caps, right? I mean, I'm not personally a big hockey fan, but I'm all for DC teams finally win something, so go Caps. I think by the time you guys hear this, we're not quite sure when this is going to be posted because Alex is like gallivanting around the country somewhere.
That's right.
But
it could be resolved.
Either way, go Caps.
I got a text from someone the other day that said, "Can you believe the Caps aren't screwing this up?" And
give them time. There's still time.
We have time. You're right. All right, well, let's move from that. Let's talk about some Redskins stuff. So I understand we had a poll this week that leads into our next discussion. What was our poll this week?
We did have a poll, and the poll this week was on Trent Williams, and we did Trent Williams because we're talking about offensive tackles and the position group breakdown this week. And first of all, I'd like to apologize because I've really messed these polls up in the last couple of weeks. I posted this Friday instead of our regular Thursday because, again, I forgot. But you guys really came through with a ton of votes even in a day, which makes me kind of mad that it wasn't going for another day. But regardless, here's the poll question. Are you worried about Trent Williams given his injury problems in the last few years? The choices are not worried at all, it's a long-term concern, replace him in the next couple years, or draft his replacement next year. And I'll just say that if I could do a fifth choice, the choice would have been we've already drafted his replacement, Jaron Christensen. But again, that's a Twitter thing. So those are 4 choices. So, Sean, what do you think the fans voted for?
Give me the first two again, the wording of the first two options.
I'm not worried at all.
Not worried at all. Yep.
It's a long-term concern.
Okay.
Replace in the next couple of years or draft a replacement next year.
God, I got to be honest. I'm really not sure where people are going to fall on this because he's been in various states of injury for the last few seasons, but it hasn't frequently it has not resulted in him not seeing the field. It might have resulted in a slight downgrade in his playing ability, but he always seemed to see the field for the most part. I'm really going out on a limb on this one, but I'm going to guess that people say replace him in the next couple years. which I think was option C.
Yeah, that was option C.
I'm going to guess that. I am going to say...
Sounds like you're not worried about it.
I'm going to say it's a long-term concern.
Long-term concern. Okay, fair enough. Well, that one, of course, is wrong. The fans actually voted for not worried at all by a vote of 40%.
Screw you guys.
But this is a pretty split vote because you missed the last couple shows, Sean, but we had one vote where we had 1%. Was the last choice. I forget what the poll was, but it's like when I come up with a choice that's 1%, that means it was a bad choice. And
it was a bad choice.
Yeah, it was. Okay, but anyway, 40% of you out there voted for not worried at all.
Wow.
27% voted replace him in the next couple years. 25% voted it's a long-term concern, and only a mere 8% of you voted draft replacement next year. So the majority,
Interesting.
yeah, the majority of you out there believe in Trent, and I believe in Trent too. I'm not sure that's what I would have voted for had I voted. What would you?
Yeah, where do you fall?
What I think I would have said replace in the next couple years.
Okay.
And we'll get into that. Oh shoot! I just turned. This is why I have to print these things because I just closed the electronic screen here. Okay, we did have some pretty good comments, so here we go. All right. See, I don't know if I want to read this guy's name. His name is @Sean75, and his go-by name is Poop Life. And I'm not really quite sure what that means, because that could mean a whole lot of things that we really don't want to get into this on this show.
Thanks, Poop Life.
Yeah. So he says Trent is a warrior and a veteran, so he knows what he's doing, and he will be ready to go when it's time. Last year was crazy because nobody could stay healthy, so he had to play through injuries. Fair enough. Okay. I bring this up. I don't agree with it, but this is a sort of a minority opinion here, so I bring it up. Hokey TAA, who is DC Kool-Aid, he says they should let him use weed for his pain. In the past, I think he's just been trying to avoid getting addicted to opioids. The weed thing aside, I don't know why you think he's getting addicted to opioids, because there's no evidence of it.
That's quite a theory.
Yeah, that's a bit. I don't know if that's Oliver Stone, trolling us or what, but if nothing else, it was pretty funny. So I had to write it.
Opioid addiction. Gosh.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Okay, Tom Harvey, who is @BigTomWV11, he says, I would like for them to do what they did this year, draft a player who could possibly play the position, so you're ready, but I'm not concerned with Trent at all.
I think that's a pretty good answer. I think that's pretty much where I'm at. Let's get someone. It's not Trent's time to be done, but let's get someone.
Yeah.
And maybe we have that person.
Here's PJ, who is @PaulJ21, who I think has commented before. I think that looks familiar. He says it's definitely a concern. He's played less and less games each year over the past few.
Yeah.
I was wanting them to shut him down earlier last season so he'd be in better shape for this one. That is PJ. That's not a bad thought either. Travis Robinson, who is @SkinsFanTrav. I know we've seen Travis before. His comment relates back to Jaron Christensen, which is I said he would have been the fifth choice. He says the guy we drafted has upside that he could be a starter one day, which true.
Let's hope.
Yeah. And finally, last one here. Yeah, we'll stop at this one. Dean Fenwick, who is @RedPigskin, says, hurt or not, just try keeping him off the line when he's needed. No worries. And, while Dean's English teacher may be slightly upset at him about writing something like that, I think what his point is that Trent's a warrior. And that dude has played through stuff that most NFL players, like this guy got hit on the head with a wine bottle.
That's right.
And didn't miss anything.
Yeah, the bottle was more injured than he was.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the poll question for this week.
Love it. So let's talk a little bit about Mr. Trent.
Okay.
Obviously, this guy, okay, so he's about 2 months younger than me. He's turning 30 in a couple months. Yes, do the math, folks at home. I turned 30. Don't rub it in.
I remember 30 vaguely.
Vaguely remember 30, yeah. It's a blur of liquor and women, right?
Yeah. It's a blur of sun-kissed, maybe.
Sun-kissed. What do you think is a realistic expectation for Trent's tenure with this team from here on out? How long do you think it's going to last?
I wanted to do the Trent poll question because I think Trent is the most interesting question, honestly, on the offensive line or in the tackle group at least. Because here's the thing: 2010, he's an 8-year vet going into his 9th year.
God, that's crazy.
You remember how many years Chris Samuels played?
No.
10.
10?
10.
That was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So we might be coming to a general threshold.
Well,
here.
yeah, I mean, and Trent, to be fair, had a spinal cord problem, and, I mean, he couldn't play anymore, and it was less a knee thing. It was strictly a spinal cord thing. But my point is, for these big guys, I mean, it's certainly a lot of them play more than that. I mean, Joe Jacoby had played more than 10 years. But I'm not sure you can count on these guys when they're 6'5", 320 pounds to play much more than 10 years. And
Right.
when I was studying, for this episode, what I saw is this. He's had 2 of his 8 years. So he played all 16 games. 2012 and 2013. 2014, he played 15 games, so we'll give him that. And he missed 1 game for whatever reason. I can't remember why. So he's basically had 3 complete seasons. 2015, 16, and 17, however, he's played less and less games each year. 14 games, 12 games, 10 games.
Wow.
Okay? And now
I didn't remember that. That's interesting.
yeah, and the 2016 4 games missed was because he couldn't stay off the weed. If you recall, it was
That's
a drug
right.
suspension.
That's right. Yep.
But nonetheless, and this is his second one. He also got the other drug suspension in 2011. He missed 4 games.
That's right.
But he was banged up before he went. My point with the drug thing is that he was banged up before he went into that drug suspension. That kind of saved his health for the season. Mm-hmm. His health seems to be getting worse and worse each year. And while he's Trent and he's awesome and we love him, at some point, Father Time and Doctor Injury always wins.
That's right. That's right. They come for all of us.
Yeah, they do, and especially when you're 320 pounds. And so it just concerns me more and more that at some point in the next couple years, fairly soon, it may get to the point where, Trent just can't do it anymore. That concerns me.
Okay, so 2 questions then for you. Because we have seen several times over the last few years an injured, banged up Trent playing. Do you think that an injured, banged up Trent is still better than the average left tackle in this league? And is it worth playing him even if he is showing signs of some abuse because he's got such a good mind for it?
Well, yeah. I mean, all you have to do is watch the games and watch a film, and you see that an injured Trent is still better. He just
Right.
may not be Hall of Fame quality Trent, but he's still better. So yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it. But listen, I mean, his contract expires in 2020. In 2020.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's 3 years from now, right? And so he's at that point he will have been an 11-year vet. Are the Washington Redskins really going to sign him up to another contract? Like, his contract is a $68 million contract. He has a $13.8 million cap hit this year. And what's his cap usage right here? His cap usage, my spreadsheet is so big now. It's crazy. He's got a 7.9% cap usage rate. Are they really going to sign a 33-year-old Trent Williams up to a 8% cap usage rate contract for the next several years after that and reasonably expect him to be awesome Pro Bowl Trent? I mean, probably not, right?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Prediction?
Well, you have to.
The Redskins will re-sign him, but this is the kind of thing that, like, the Patriots or Belichick or whoever, this is the kind of player that they would get rid of just before their useful playing life was over to get some compensation for it. That's what I feel like. The Redskins won't do that, but that's the best move.
I think
with
you're
Trent,
probably right. I mean, of course, maybe by then we don't know who's going to be in the charge and everything, but that's the Redskins' history. For sure, and I agree with you, but I'm not sure that that's going to go well long term. I also can't see him retiring before the end of his contract because he'd be a fool to, because it's a lot of money.
Yeah,
right.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, unless something tragic happens. I mean, he's got some weird injury. But the Redskins have a long history of great offensive tackles. I think offensive tackle is probably our best position group.
That's the one position we always get locked in.
Well, and the reason is that Chris Samuels was the second overall pick, I believe, in his draft class. Trent Williams was number 4 overall, I believe, in his draft class. So Jim Lachey was a big time tackle before him, and then Joe Jacoby. Jacoby obviously was undrafted, but Lachey was drafted. So we don't really have a history of successfully finding guys off the street to fill in. What we do is we draft big time tackle prospects. And so maybe that's going to happen again. But if you do that, tackles tend to play immediately. You don't draft a tackle and develop him for 2 years. You draft a tackle and throw him in immediately. Right. I mean, typically, like Joe Thomas and Trent Williams and guys like that, they just play. And so I tend to think if we do that, if you see us draft a tackle in the first round, it's curtains for Trent,
Man, it's really sad to think that we lock in Alex Smith and immediately we're going to have to start thinking about
I don't mean to be
shoring up his blind side.
Yeah, I don't mean to be
Sucks.
Steve Downer Esquire here. I just bring the issue up because
This is what we're here for.
Yeah, right. And the other thing is drugs. I mean, he's had 2 4-game drug suspensions, and I know it's a huge question, but the fact of the matter is right now the NFL has prohibits weed. You can like it, you cannot like it, but that's the rule. And he's been busted twice, and the result of him being busted twice is that now he's back in the drug program again, and it takes a couple years to get out of it. I don't want to get too detailed about it, mainly because my drug program folder is sitting across the room. But the point is...
You have one of those?
I do, yeah.
Psychopath.
You should see it. I have it's sad. It's, it's like find something else to do, But anyway, my point is, it takes a while to get out of the drug program again. So he's in a heightened category right now because of the 2016 suspension. So, there's a lot of things. So, one bust and he's going to be out,
And I'm sorry, does this mean he gets higher scrutiny? Is that the whole idea behind it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He gets higher scrutiny and he's in a higher stage of the drug program than someone who has been busted, and it will reset eventually, but it hasn't yet. So all those things mean I think Trent is a concern in spite of the fact that, of him being so awesome. Playing
God, that's just so sad. He's been the one, obviously every Redskins fan knows this, but he's like the one, solid rock on this team for going back many years. It's disappointing to think.
I hate to waste his career, I mean, with awful teams.
That's too. I think we already did. I think we already did. Happened. That ship sailed.
Yeah, because it's like he's a guy who really ought to get Hall of Fame consideration.
Yeah,
but
he never will.
He won't. I mean, he'll get consideration, but will he make it? Probably not.
We didn't accomplish enough.
Yeah, and I think the Hall of Fame, when it comes to the Redskins, the Hall of Fame voters have proven that they don't care about Super Bowls when it comes to tackles. Otherwise, Joe Jacoby would have been in a long time ago. And he's played in a league with Joe Thomas and Tyrone Smith. He's never been.
And he has respect from all these guys.
He does.
He has respect around the league.
But I also don't think anybody would name him the best of zero because that would be Joe Thomas.
Probably.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. But he's up there in the top 5. He's got to be.
So I think the result of that is I think Trent may end up in the Hall of Very Good or Hall of Very Close or the Hall of Almost Hall of Fame. I think that's probably his destiny unless something great happens. So.
Well, I'll tell you what. He's in the Hog Style Hall of Fame. 100%.
Definitely. Yep. Because we've had him on the show, sort of. I mean, we did attend one of his. Jamal got him at training camp. So
that's right.
We're going to call him a friend of the show just because it sounds good.
He's been on the show before. We got an exclusive Trent scoop. I like him.
It wasn't really exclusive. He had like 15 reporters around it, but Jamal was one of them, and so that counts.
Steve, we just call it exclusive. It doesn't have to actually be exclusive, Steve. Don't you understand how the show works now?
Yeah, we can just fake it.
It's all about appearances.
We've faked it for years.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's talk about some of these other guys on the roster besides Trent. Who else?
Morgan Moses, starter on the right.
Yeah, so I was going to say, who else would you find a lock on this team in terms of tackles? And you're going with Moses?
Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, Absolutely. Morgan's got a ginormous contract himself. He's paid a lot of money for being a right tackle. So he's got to perform. I mean, Moses got a $38 million contract. He's got a $5.4 million cap hit.
Get a big extension.
Yeah, big extension. That's a lot he's in the. I don't know where you're going specifically, but he's up in the top 5. At least for right tackles. He's another guy that he got really beat up last year. He's 6'6", 335. Guys like that have foot problems, lower leg problems. So long term, it's a concern. I went back and watched some Morgan Moses film, and he didn't have the greatest year last year.
Right. What? Describe in general terms his ability. Are you going to call him above average?
Yeah.
Really, really solid. What would you call him in terms of his ability?
Above average.
Above average.
I think the Redskins probably overpaid for him a little bit, but because he has his moments, but he also has moments where he completely whiffs and run blocking and pass blocking both. Where
Mental
you just
issues,
look,
yeah.
I don't know if it's technique. We need to get Adam on the show to talk about why. But I mean, you watch the film and then you watch the dude run right around him, and a lot of times it's because of hand. I can tell it's like hand placement issues. He's not engaging him right. I'm not the right one to talk about tackle technique, but even my unexpert eyes can see that he has big busts like that, and so that's my problem. Is he's a little bit inconsistent, I think, in that regard, and then you toss in injuries, But look, I mean, I'm happy to have him. He was a 3rd round pick, and he's developed into a solid starter. I mean, that's a win. When you're the Washington Redskins, that's a win.
And he's still got room to improve
Yes.
as well. He's probably not done evolving as a player at this
I would
point.
assume, yeah, and he's got a great offensive line coach, obviously. I mean, he's not as like Trent ran a 4.8 40. He doesn't have that kind of that's just insane athleticism.
Yeah, that's a freak of nature.
Yeah, he's not that. I mean, he ran a 5.35 40. So he's not the most athletic dude in the world. He didn't start many games in college. He only started 13 games in college at Virginia, which I didn't realize. I'd forgotten that at least.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Actually, I hadn't realized that.
So he's solid, but if he's going to be one of these guys because he's so big that he's going to start to have annual injury problems because he's had his share, that's going to be a problem just because he has such a big contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I fall on Moses.
So he and Williams are going to be locks on this team. Is there anyone else, though, in the tackle pool on this roster that is a lock for this team that you think is a can't lose, can't afford to drop kind of player?
Well, I mean, Jaron Christensen's going to be on the roster.
Well, yeah. I mean, he sort of doesn't count, though, because he's...
You mean you're talking about, like, from a play perspective?
Yeah, I mean, is there anyone else that you look at and you're like, oh, there's no way we're getting rid of him?
I really like Ty, just because we've had so many of our
And
offensive
Zeki,
line experts. We've had Robbie loves him, Adam loves him. There's other people that we've talked to that think, Bullock likes him a lot. So I tend to think for that reason. I mean, you and we're just not going to pretend to be an expert in tackle technique, right? But
well, his footwork could really. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, exactly. We don't know. But point is, I think from a play on the field perspective, he's a lock. His problem is he's 32, and he's about to be he'll be 33 in October.
Yeah.
So he's getting older, but he doesn't have a lot of mileage on him for an NFL player because we love him. He did a great interview with us. What was that, 2 years ago? I mean, it's an incredible story, but the result of the incredible story is he hadn't had a ton of NFL beatings. So he really ought to be good for a couple of years.
So Trent Williams goes down week 1. How confident are you in Nseki coming up, filling in, and taking us through the season?
And Nseki proved he was good, when he's healthy. He proved he could do it. I think Ty Nseki, if you just watch him, I think Ty could start for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
He's not going to replace Joe Thomas necessarily, maybe, but I think Ty is a starting quality swing tackle. And the other thing is, I mean, Adam brought this up. At some point, you got to think about getting your best 5 guys on the field at the same time. And can Ty play? Can Ty play guard? We know he's big. He's 6'8", and the convention is that the guys who are 6'8" can't get low enough to get the proper leverage when you're an interior offensive lineman. But I mean, again, Robbie and Adam both think he can because he's that good. No. He's that athletic. So it's a thought. And Jay Gruden himself said in the presser at the draft, I believe, that they were going to let Nseki compete at guard.
I feel like he has a good. If there's an open competition for guard right now, I feel like that's any man's game.
Well, it's his competition is like the milkman. You and I are in the running for it, and I mean, that's his competition. Yeah. So
yeah. I mean, I can't wait for the guard position group.
We're gonna get there. It'll be comedy. We'll get there. It'll be Brandon Scherf and a bunch of guys. That's how it's gonna be like.
And a bunch of guys, exactly. Okay, so who else for the tackles then? You mentioned Jaron Christian. Obviously, he gets sort of a pass through the season because he's obviously going to be with the team. Who do we not mention?
I'd like to go next with T.J. Clemmings, because I think T.J. Clemmings is the next guy up, it seems to me. 6'5", 309 pounds out of Pitt. He was a 2005 fourth-round draft pick of the Minnesota Vikings. Didn't last in Minnesota, only played there 2 years before he came to us, but he started 26 games for him.
Nice.
Or I'm sorry, no, he started 30 games for him, not
There we go.
26. He was known as being a fairly athletic guy. Ran a 5.14 40. Is TJ going to be a starter? No, but I think this is the next guy who's going to be the competent, solid vet. Is TJ Clemmings at tackle? So if Nseki's playing guard or Nseki goes down, I think Clemmings is the next guy up. It seems to me. Again, I think he's a good rotational guy. A good backup.
And so we didn't see him at all prior to this because of injury, right? We haven't seen him.
He started 2 games.
2 games, okay.
Last year, and he played in 6 in our round robin injury disaster. Everybody played. They were ready to sign Alex up. At one point in time, we got a call asking for Alex East to play tackle.
Guys, last year is such a weird year for the Redskins. It's so hard to gauge anybody's ability on this team last year just because of the injuries that we had at foundational positions.
Yeah.
And the fact that we didn't have a running back, et cetera.
Yeah, So I think Clemmings, if you want the next guy, I think it's Clemmings. He's not going to wow you, but he's a solid player, certainly a solid backup, and he's got a small contract. I mean, it's a...
Yeah, what did you say his status with the team is?
He's got a 4-year deal...
Okay.
I'm sorry, a 2-year deal. I've got an error in my thing here. His contract expires at the end of this year. A $2.8 million contract, and his cap hit's $1.9 million. So, I mean, for a vet, 2015 vet, that's a pretty good deal. So I think there's your next guy up. Your next man up is TJ Clemmings.
All right, and then moving on down the list from there, who we got left? We've got a John Kling.
Yeah, I mean, John Kling, he's another really big dude, 6'8", 328 pounds. He's out of the University of Buffalo. He's been around a couple years. He was on our practice squad last year. He's a guy who's, he's going to have to fight for it. Yeah, he's a guy. He's probably going to be on the practice squad. I don't, if John Kling beats out either Nseki or Clemmings, I'd be surprised.
That would be a surprise move.
Yeah, I think John Kling's destiny is probably practice squad. Tony Bergstrom, I think, is the next guy up, probably for me at least. Now, Bergstrom is a guy who is pretty versatile.
Is he a tackle though, or
I list him. We're gonna talk about him as a guard too. Okay. Because he played tackle in college, and he's 6'5", 315 pounds. So he's got the height and the bulk to be a tackle. But yeah, when he's, I think most people probably look at him as a guard. He's at the, in the little he's played, he's been a guard. But I think this is your emergency guy. This is my point. This is why I brought him up as a tackle. Yeah. I think he's probably our emergency guy. If disaster strikes and the Grim Reaper comes again, I think if you're going to move a guy outside, it's probably Bergstrom. So that's why I bring him up here. But yeah, I think certainly more people would call him a guard, but he's got the size for it, and he does have experience playing it. So it's not like you're going to throw Laval out there as a tackle unless you really have to. The man's a guard.
I mean, considering the crop of people that we have at guard and tackle, would you consider this an obvious sort of keep just because of the versatility? I'm not talking about
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, he's not. I mean, he's played he's a 2012 grad, or not grad, a draftee, but he's 31. He's about to turn 32. He's been around. He's really only been active for 2 years. I didn't realize he
was that old. Wow.
Yeah, he's really only. I mean, he was active for 16 games for Oakland, 15 for the Texans. Only started 3 games. Was active for 13 games in 2017, including Washington, and we signed him off the street.
Yeah, so this isn't much to expect anything from.
No, but I think this may be our emergency guy. That's my point.
Okay.
A do-all emergency guy. Jaron Christensen, real briefly, we've talked a lot about Christensen. His deal is he needs to get bulkier. He's only about 300 pounds at most. I mean, he was listed at 298 when we did our draft review.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's a little thin, maybe. But clearly he's very athletic, and that's why Jay Gruden likes him. I was a little bamboozled by the pick. Did you like the pick during the draft? I was
not particularly.
Surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, didn't get me all excited or anything.
No, but then I realized that what Jay said is here was what Jay was quoted as during the draft about this. He said, "What we went through at tackle last year was catastrophic with all the injuries, and still a lot of these guys are recovering from their injuries. Trent's recovering still, Morgan is still recovering, Ty is recovering, and we have TJ Clemmings still recovering, so we need depth at tackle." Well,
file that under no shit, Jay.
Oh yeah, there you go. And
jeez.
And we're gonna beep the curse word out because we don't want to get in trouble with iTunes. But,
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but Christian's going to be on the team. I'm not totally wild about drafting a dude in the third round whose destiny is probably swing tackle, but welcome Jaron anyway.
Yeah, it is what it is. Hey, we won't cast judgment until we see you get some playing time, buddy.
Exactly. Maybe he's going to be the next Joe Jacoby. God, who knows?
See, you never know. That's the thing. And we're long overdue for one of those, Steve. So
we are.
Could be our year.
Yeah, we are long overdue. A couple of back of the roster guys. Finally at the end of this little journey. Timmy and Paris, undrafted free agent out of Stony Brook. We signed him 6'6", 312 pounds. Lance Zierlein has him rated as NFL backup or special teams potential. Apparently has some good lateral footwork, a lot of experience as a 4-year starter at Stony Brook. I mean, I hope so when you're at Stony Brook. He has some technique issues, plays tall, so he's got some things that the offensive line coaches may need to work with him. I think Timon Paris's destiny is practice squad at best. So that's him. And then Cameron Jefferson, last one. This 6'5", 317. Can't exactly. Cameron Jefferson, out of Arkansas, undrafted free agent out of 2015. Spent time with the Bears, the Buffalo Bills, the Denver Broncos, all on a practice squad. He's a dude. He's a guy.
Dude vying for his spot in this world.
Yeah, that's, I'm not going to pretend to know much more about it. I did not go back and watch Cameron Jefferson's Arkansas All-22 film. Sue me. Even I have a life, if it's not much of one.
It exists. Okay, so basically what we're saying then is we have some, in the context of the Redskins roster, we have some obvious first, tier guys. At these positions. Then there's room. There's room for anyone to come forward and wow everybody and vie for a better spot on this team. There's room because it sounds like there's a lot of questions around the back of the roster guys, like you said. So we have some obvious picks and some obvious locks, but they're only so obvious and everyone else kind of has a shot.
Yeah. That's a good way to summarize it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, so obviously not our strongest position group, but hey, it could be worse. It could be last year when everyone was, dead.
Yeah, it could be last year when we didn't have enough offensive linemen to hold practice. Hopefully we don't have that problem this year.
That's so damn Redskins. I can't even handle it. Okay, let's move on from there then. OTAs have been going on. What are the things that we have heard coming out of OTAs besides the fact that Josh Norman is taking red-eye flights to work out team workouts when he's not dancing with the stars?
I mean, there hasn't been a ton of OTA news.
It's all a little bit.
Yeah, it's little bits here and there. We've seen that Alex Smith looks sharp. We've seen that we had a couple injuries, minor injuries. Robert Davis hurt a toe. Ari Kwanjo had a major injury last week, and he's not on the roster. Yes. Actually, were we supposed to bring that up? I might have forgotten to mention. Yeah, I can't remember if we brought it up or not last week. But I think what we had it last week was Ari Kwanjo had his injury. It was about to be evaluated. Well, it's been evaluated. He's had surgery, and he's no longer a Redskin.
He's not going to be at the team.
Well, they waived him with an injury designation, which I believe means if he passes through waivers, he reverts back to the team on IR. I think that's how it works.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I didn't know that wrinkle to it. Okay.
Yeah. And we heard, we've had good things about Trey Quinn. I think Trey is probably the next president of the United States.
Right.
If you based on fan reactions, he's probably our next president in 2020, when he's done playing football, maybe.
He may have already cured cancer. That's
exactly. He's what he does in his off time is he goes to the lab and he researches, he researches leukemia. He's going to tackle that next. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Yeah. Anything that we can really say about Kwanjo? I mean, what can you really say about Kwanjo? You didn't see much action with the team, kind of a disappointment. Is there anything that we can say about this guy? I mean, is there any loss you're feeling?
I mean, he might have developed and gotten slowly better. I mean, he was a draft pick, and so the Redskins tried to do what they can to
Tried to stick with him at least.
Yeah, tried to stick with him, and what can you say? I mean, he came on our show, and we appreciated that, and he seemed like a really nice guy when we talked to him. In terms of his play on the field, it left something to be desired. Although I did think, contrary to what some of you believe, I do think he was a lot better last year. I do think he was a much better. I think he was a much better player when they brought him in halfway through the season in the injury disaster. I thought he looked a lot better than he did in years past. So there's that. But what can you
Likelihood
say?
of being picked up by another team before the start of this coming season?
No, because he's out with an injury for.
Oh, right.
He had the torn quad, so he's out. So no, he's not going to get picked up. We had this
I guess I
happen.
should say likelihood of playing for another team again. You think probably pretty good, right? At least seeing another team, maybe not.
Probably
being a
seeing
starter.
another team. Yeah, I mean somebody will probably pick him up. We'll just have to see what happens. Again, I think he's going to revert back to our roster.
Yeah, if he clears these, if no one picks him up. Okay.
Yeah. So, and they signed Isaiah. We'll get to guards, but they signed Isaiah as the roster move. They signed Isaiah Williams to take his place. Isaiah was with the team last offseason, and now he's back. So we'll get to guards on another show. But that's OTAs. So the big thing is, out of OTAs, I think, is Ari's injury. Robert Davis stubbed a toe. Alex Smith looks good. He said all the right things. He
certainly
looks the
has.
part. Yeah.
And that's the thing I was going to say is you never know if this is just the team, putting crap out there. But it sounds like he's taken a real leadership position with this team, which I don't think Kirk Cousins ever really did. And even if their play is similar, I think Alex Smith is a guy that's going to, seems to already have a good command of the team. So that's what I've heard out of OTAs. Again, you never know how accurate that is. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to judge Cousins too much on his press conferences, because that's not really fair. But I do think that just sort of as an intangible, unexpert observation, it seems to me that Alex is a little bit less odd, than Kirk is, and he may fit in kind of to the standard NFL guy,
I think so.
What's the word? He may be more of a standard NFL guy, and hopefully he'll be able to integrate himself very well. Because he doesn't say dumb things in press conferences. He just spouts.
He's polished.
He
says the right
spouts.
things.
He spouts Derek Jeter platitudes.
Right. You're not going to get a whole lot out of that.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Next up, and this is always fun, we were going to talk about some rule changes. Now, they introduced some pretty big rule changes this year. Actually, some ones that have some pretty big, imaginably pretty big impacts on the game itself, which is not always the case. So, I know of three big ones.
Okay.
I don't remember how many there were total, but maybe what's the big one that
The big one is
popped out to you?
kickoffs.
Yeah.
In terms of on the field,
It's going to be a
kickoffs,
fundamental change to the game.
They made a bunch of changes to kickoffs, and I think the casual fans out there are probably this is a little bit too much for you, but quite frankly, if you're listening to our show in May, you're probably not a casual fan, so we're going to go over this in a little bit of detail.
Good call. Good point.
Okay. The first thing about kickoffs is, number one, the kickoff team must have 5 players on each side of the kicker. Used to be you could vary it, you could go 4 and 6. Now it has to be 5 and 5.
And where would those other two go in years past? They would just be behind.
Well,
one.
no. I mean, you could have 4 on one side and 6 on the other
6
side
on
of
the
the
other.
kicker.
So you could just mix and match it.
Yeah. Now it's 5 and 5, and we'll get to why here in a minute. They've changed the way the players on the kickoff team can spread out. Now 2 players must be lined up outside the yard line marker, and then 2 must be between the inbounds line and the yard line marker, meaning those dashes on the field. So you got to have 2 outside the numbers, and then 2 between the numbers and the dashes.
So they're trying to spread everyone out.
Yeah, and that's to prevent a guy from getting annihilated by two guys. That's what it's about. Because in years past, the rule was you had more latitude to mix and match there. And from the kickoff perspective now, all the players can't be lined up. The ball's going to be kicked off from the 35. The kickoff team cannot be lined up deeper than the 34. meaning they can't get a running start anymore because you have to.
Right.
If the ball's been kicked off on the 35, you can only be at the 34 instead of back several yards, so you have a running start. That's out, and the reason is they're trying to slow down the impact, so it's not two Ferraris and colliding, it's two Hondas.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
From a return perspective, a bunch of changes on that too. Now they can only have 3 players deep. The guy in the primary kick returner in the end zone, and then 2 up backs, and then all of the 8 other players must be what they call in the setup zone. And the setup zone is from the kickoff team's 40 to the 45, meaning that 15 yards.
So the returning team, more returning players need to be
closer to the front,
closer to the kickoff.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Which means again that slows down the impacts. Now and no more wedge blocking. They got rid of they sort of got rid of wedge blocking years ago. Back when I played, you could link up
wedge
everybody
block as much as you want.
You could create a literal wall if you want, and it was just a massive car wreck. They got rid of, but you could still do 2-man wedge blocks. Now that's out too. You can't. Meaning, what that means is 2 guys can't block the same guy.
Okay,
that's out. Now they can no longer initiate blocks in the first 15 yards, meaning the ball's kicked off from the 35. You can't initiate a block until you get to midfield.
Okay.
So I think the purpose of that is
pretty big.
Yeah, it is, and I think that's to give people more of a chance to get set, and so it's not blindside immediate hits. There's that. I think I've got them all here. Wedge blocking. The last thing that's I think pretty big and pretty interesting is if the ball goes into the end zone untouched by the return team, it's automatically dead.
Yes, and I did see this. This doesn't come out a whole lot, but I do know last year with the Bills and the Jets, I believe, this was one example of, he let it roll into the end zone. The other guy came out and touched it, and it was a touchdown, obviously, which is not the case anymore. Now it will be dead if the defender touches it, right?
Yeah, and it's dead if the ball hits the end zone at all.
Okay, so he didn't even have to touch it.
No, he didn't have to touch it, and that is to eliminate the extra blocking while the teams need to decide if they're going to down it or running out. So when it's just dead, if it rolls into the end zone, the play's over, and so that limits some hits. So that's kickoffs. It's pretty big. Again, I think the casual fans may not notice because they didn't know in the first place, but for you hardcore rules guys, I think there's a significant amount of changes on the kickoffs. At least we still have kickoffs.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just thinking about this in general, I know we can move to the next one, but this sounds to me like it's going to result in more run back touchdowns because you can't. Everyone's spread out. The whole kickoff team is spread out more, so you can't just line up on the side of, like, say, Deshaun Jackson is on or whatever, and just obliterate the guy anymore. And you've changed the blocking rules, so you can't do wedge blocks anymore. So it sounds like this has actually made things maybe possibly a little bit easier for the returning team.
Maybe. We'll see. I'm glad to see that the owners realized they couldn't just get rid of the kickoffs, because all this is really about is the CTE lawsuit.
Yeah, safety.
What I'd really love to do is, I don't know how to do this, and I don't want to kill myself, trying to figure it out. What I want to know is the injury rate on kickoffs compared to the injury rate on regular plays.
Yeah.
But
I mean doesn't it bear out that it really is a lot more for kickoffs?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard that, but I've never seen any data. People say it, and it makes sense. And having been on a kickoff team, it's a pretty miserable way to go.
You can understand.
Oh, yeah, it is. But I don't know if that's really true or not. I don't know if there's science or data to back that up.
To back it up. Okay. We should find that out, actually. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to research it, good luck. That's the problem. I don't know how to even get to start that project like that. You want to go on to the next?
Yeah. Let's go on to the next next rule.
Next on the field rule change: automatic replay review of all ejections.
Which is interesting. I have thoughts about this, but how does this strike you?
What are your thoughts? Well, no, I want to hear your thoughts. I've babbled on long enough.
I mean,
what are your thoughts?
I feel like most of the time when a player gets ejected, it's for, like, taking their helmet off in the middle of the field, which is totally not ever, like, enforced consistently ever. But it's like, or yelling at a ref, or, like, putting your arm on a ref to argue with them or something, which you see oftentimes they get ejected for it. This is what I'd be curious to know is how many times an actual infraction during a play results in ejection, I actually feel like that's rarer than the other way to get ejected, which is more for conduct.
I think you're right, but I'm in favor of replay review of everything.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a play that happens during a football game that ought to not be reviewable. That's not to say the teams should be able to throw the replay flag every single time because the game would take 8 hours, but I don't know why you don't have a rule that says every play can be reviewed. It makes no sense. To me, I think what this does is this stops the idea of, if there's a fight and the first guy throws a punch and the ref doesn't see it but sees the next guy throw a punch and he gets the one that gets tossed, the replay can fix that and go, no, wait a minute, the Dallas Cowboy jerk started it and the Redskin guy was just defending himself.
Which most likely will result in both of them getting kicked out.
Yeah, or maybe the second guy gets saved. I mean, I think that's where this will. Now, how often does that happen? That's
the thing to me is this reminds me of the Key and Peele sketch when he's doing the pelvic thrusts and the ref is counting them to see if he does 3 because he'll get ejected if he does the third one. I feel like this is going to result in a lot of really silly
probably
replays.
Maybe so.
I'm with you though. That said, that why would you not review something?
Yeah, it just makes no sense to me. Why not review it?
I'm with you.
So the third thing is kind of a big deal.
It's a lot more interesting.
It's a lot more interesting. I think we have to address it. I think the world knows how I feel because I wrote a column about it, and the world knows how you feel because you wrote a column about it.
That's right.
The NFL has changed their national anthem policy in an attempt to quell the controversy. And I think what they have done is lit the controversy on fire because they're idiots and the owners are a bunch of morons. But here's the rule for those of you who have been under a rock and are just learning this. The rule previous to this, the rules just suggested basically that the players stand. There was not a mandatory you must stand in the NFL rules. It was we think you should stand. Yeah, for the anthem. Now the rule is if you are going to be on the field while the national anthem is playing, you must stand. But you have the option of being in the locker room for the national anthem. This is an attempt. So that is the rule. So the problem, of course, is this leaves everything open for people to get criticized. Why were you on the field? Why did you sit through the stand through the horrible, evil national anthem? Because it's apparently it's equivalent. Standing for the national anthem to some is like the equivalent of child molestation. It seems like it's ridiculous. But that also it's just ridiculous. But it also leaves the people who choose to stay in the locker room open. Why did you stay in the locker room? Well, maybe it's because you were in the bathroom. Maybe it's because you were finishing your power bar. It doesn't necessarily mean that you hate the evil, horrible national anthem. It may mean anything. Maybe you just don't feel like going out there because you're in your zone. But what it does is it leaves everybody open for those questions. What the NFL, if the NFL had a brain, which they don't clearly, what they would have said is either one of two things. One, all players will be on the field and standing for the national anthem, period, dot, the end, like the NBA has, or all the teams are just going to stay in the locker room, we'll play the national anthem, and then you come out. Why on earth, why in the name of all things that are good and holy, would you give people options which will just create a permanent controversy of people taking names? These guys clearly don't respect the police brutality cause because they were standing for the national anthem and why. And these guys clearly don't respect the military and the flag because they were in the locker room. It is such an incredibly dumb, ridiculous, stupid policy. Yeah. I just can't understand what they're thinking.
I agree with you completely. This feels like you want to have your cake and eat it too. You want to please both sides. You want to please the people that are all about standing for the anthem. You want to please the people who are trying to protest. You want to please everybody. All it's going to result in is really inconsistent looking anthems where sometimes entire teams stay in the locker room and sometimes entire teams are outside of the locker room. And it's just, I don't think it's going to have the desired effect that they intend.
Yeah, and the other thing is, the part of the rule I didn't mention is that the teams each can set their own rules. And so that also means that the owners are leaving themselves open to critique because, like, Jerry Jones is probably going to make everybody. Jerry Jones has come out publicly in favor of everybody standing for the national anthem, which I'm all for it. Everybody knows my position. But other teams' owners don't necessarily feel that way, and so that's going to leave each team open to being questioned. Whereas if they just pass a rule that said everybody stays in the locker room or everybody stands and just deal with it, one or the other, they can just deflect everything to Roger Goodell.
Yeah.
who everybody hates him anyway. So
Everybody already hates him.
Yeah, I just don't understand. It's them trying to please everybody, and what's going to happen is they're going to please nobody.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be really curious to see. We should maybe do a poll on this next time, because I would be really interested in seeing what our listeners think about this rule change or about the issue in general.
Me too. I mean, my position. I just don't understand why anybody thinks it's a big deal to be told to stand. I mean, for God's sakes. I mean, it's the national anthem. I mean, stand for your national anthem.
And I think, for the most part, I understand where you're coming from with that. I think, the thing that I always come down to is it's not – the protest of kneeling during the anthem wasn't ever about the anthem. It was about something else. And they were using this national anthem as a platform to communicate something that they thought was wrong. But it was never really saying, we hate the anthem or we hate the country. That was always my understanding of it. I don't think that this threat of a fine is going to change that, because I think the underlying conditions that people were complaining about are still in place, and it's just going to result in, we saw it last year. One person would kneel on a team, and the whole team kneeled kind of in solidarity for it.
Or they would hold his hand while they're kneeling. Yeah,
exactly. All that we're going to see now is, the whole team's going to stay in the locker room, whatever. I agree with you. It's going to have completely the opposite effect of.
Yeah, I mean, I was extremely offended by that, because in my eyes, kneeling or sitting during the national anthem is a direct slap in the face of everybody who's died for that flag, and that's how I interpreted it. And I've been repeatedly told that I'm not allowed to have that opinion, and I'm totally wrong, including...
I think a lot of people have that opinion, though. You're not alone in that opinion.
No, but we've even had massive controversy amongst our staff on the Hogsty about this, in friendly ways. We're not mad at each other, but there's massive differences of opinion, and that's how I took it, and... I'm not sure why I'm so wrong in having that opinion, and I'm not sure why people are telling me that I can't have that opinion, and why I should just shut up and not be offended because that's not what they intended. Well, my response to that is, how is that any different than using language that is racially insensitive? If I use language that is racially insensitive, if my response is, well, that's just the way I talk, I don't intend it like that. I just intend it in a friendly way, so you need to not get offended. Well, the answer to that is offenses in the eye of the beholder. Well, you know what? This is the same thing. I'm offended by it, and that's the way I perceive it, and you can like it or not or do something about it or not, but that's the way I perceive it, and I don't really care what your intent is. And the other thing is, and this came up in the comment section on our website. A couple people mentioned this, and I agree with them. I really think that this all started with Colin Kaepernick just pouting, because he was sitting right when he got benched, before he left the 49ers. I think he's just pouting, and he turned this into a cause.
A nationwide cause?
Yeah, I think that's
harsh,
really.
Steve.
I mean,
a little harsh.
I have no basis for saying that other than just looking in. There's no evidence of it, but I think that's really how it started. But the bottom line is that the NFL has not solved any problem. They're trying to make everybody happy, and they're going to make nobody happy.
Yeah, and Steve, I appreciate your opinion on it. And for folks at home, Steve and I have both written articles. Maybe we'll link them or something in some way. We wrote this way back when the controversy was more raging directly. But we've both written sort of like opinion pieces on this issue if you want to learn more about what we think about it. But I guess what I'd say in terms of your comparison, Steve, is it's kind of like people don't like the use of racially insensitive language, but we also don't really police it. Yeah, racially insensitive language is everywhere. It's in music,
NFL polices it though. The NFL polices it. It's a penalty if you use racially insensitive language now if the players do.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we look at the NFL in a vacuum, which is the NFL is almost like its own little society with the rules that they think they can pass. But I'm just talking about in general in society. We find it offensive that when people use racially insensitive language, but there's also not much we can do about it. And that's kind of where I feel about this. It is somewhat offensive to people, especially military people. I understand if people are kneeling for the anthem, but what can we really do about it? Can we really police that? And fining a team, so like a financial penalty, it just feels like a loss of freedoms, because you're saying you can make this decision, we're just going to fine you for it. You can make this decision, we're just going to take your money, which is not really a freedom.
It's one thing if the government's doing it, though. If the government's doing it, it's unconstitutional. Because the First Amendment, for those of you who still don't quite get this, because a lot of people don't understand this still. The First Amendment says the government can't censor you. And the reason historically for that is the founding fathers of this country believed that the people should have the right to criticize the government without being silenced by the government. And that has turned into something a whole lot more because, than that it's gotten into pornography and a bunch of other things. But point is, it has to do with government censorship. And so there is zero First Amendment issue when it comes to making statements on a field, because the NFL, the National Football League, controls, and the TV networks control football games. And much like any business, all businesses have conduct rules of what you can and can't do at work. And some are more lax than others and whatnot, but the NFL can control its TV show however they want.
Yeah, it ends at the private sector. Your protections and freedoms.
And so if the NFL do this, can the NFL do this? Yeah, they can.
They are legally allowed to do this. Though I think it would be worth saying that I don't think the Founding Fathers would have ever anticipated that this would be an issue.
Founding Fathers would probably be horrified at the thought of football because it's pretty violent.
Exactly, and horrified at so much about the world we live in today.
And not just football. Yeah, they'd be horrified about a whole lot of things, I think.
Let's let them stay peacefully dead. This is not the world for them anymore.
No. But the other thing, finally, on the other thing about, I just want to say, and I'll let it go. The NBA has a harsher rule than the NFL.
Which really surprises me, Steve, because I didn't mean to interrupt, but
go ahead.
I know that these anthem protests, I believe, started way back in the day in the NBA, which is probably why they.
Well, it started with one guy, and I don't want to. No, it's not Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It was another guy who has a Muslim name who I'm going to get wrong because I didn't plan to mention his name today, but I'll look it up here in a minute. But that guy was kneeling, and he got in massive trouble for it. And then the NBA just flat out, just recently, and so he's the one who kind of started it, and they punished him for it, justifiably so, because they had a rule. And the NBA just last year reiterated the rule before this season started, and said everybody will stand during the national anthem period. Somehow it's okay for the NBA to do that, but everybody's up in arms about the NFL. And newsflash here, there's a lot more political activism in the NBA than there is in the NFL. As much as I dislike LeBron James for a lot of reasons, I mean, he spouted off about the election, about politics, all sorts of things on social media and other places, and it's fine with me. Steve Kerr is railing against Donald Trump like every day, it seems like, Yeah, but somehow, and Kerr is so stupid himself because he criticized. Steve Kerr, the head coach of Golden State Warriors, criticized the NFL for their rule and called them stupid and everything. Ignored the fact that the NBA's rule is harsher. I just don't understand it. So why is the NBA's rule okay with you people out there, and yet the NFL's rule is not?
Wait, so what exactly is the NBA rule? Is
NBA
it just
rule
that
is
you have to stand?
You will stand, period.
Yeah, that's just it. There's no option
no.
to... Yeah.
You will stand. And I don't know why that's okay with some of you people out there, and the NFL rule is not.
That's actually interesting. I wasn't aware of the NBA rules, though. Personally, that's just because
I can tell you why.
I have not care less.
This is going to be not politically correct.
Oh no!
But if you want to know why,
oh no, Steve.
I don't want to get myself in too much trouble here.
You should see the expression that just came across Steve's face.
Because what's going through my head is something that probably shouldn't be said out loud. But the NBA is more of a. It's more hip, for lack of a better term. Okay, hip may be an old person's term, that's not a millennial term, but it's cooler to be in the NBA than it is in the NFL, right? And the NBA is linked to rap stars, and all rappers want to be basketball players, and all basketball players want to be rappers, right?
There's a lot of
and so the NBA, I think, gets more of a pass from some of these things because it's just cooler in the eyes of many millennials. Whereas the NFL is a no-fun league. It's stodgy. They don't have a good relationship with their players. And so in that respect, they get criticized a lot certainly by younger people, like people of your generation and younger, because they just view the NFL as kind of the no fun stodgy league that's already mad at all the players and fighting with the players. And the NBA is looked at as the hip cool league where the players and the management are in bed together and about a lot of things. And so the NBA gets a pass. I think that's what I was trying to say. I
could see that. I could also see it partially being, the attention on the NFL season is so focused. There's so few games. I think there's probably slightly more viewership. I feel like the average viewership for an NFL game is way above the average.
Oh,
basketball game.
It's not close.
It's not even close.
The draft, the NFL draft trounces NBA playoff games.
Yeah, it's probably partially that too.
Of the top, you want to know? I saw this the other day because doing It's Just Business prep. The top 10 most watched programs of the year or last year, football games of the past year. Top 10, 9 of them are football games, and then the royal wedding was in there too. Was last But football games are the number one rated program. The ratings are going down. Less people are watching, but it's like saying Kate Upton is slightly less hot because she's a year later. That's
She's
what
still
it is.
effing gorgeous.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. That's actually interesting. I mean, I think it's partially probably that too, Steve. There's just so much more attention.
Well, the
on
NBA is
football.
getting trounced in revenue. Like the NFL has about over $13 billion a year in revenue. NBA is down at like $5 billion. And Major League Baseball is at about is in the $9 billion range.
Wow.
NBA is close to the NHL in terms of revenue.
Not
so
really
it's not
surprises
close.
me.
It's not close at all.
That is actually very surprising
Yeah.
to me
I
because
just
the
think
NBA
it's-
playoffs are popular. Everyone talks
Yeah,
about
but they get regular season NFL games trounce the NBA Finals in ratings.
them. That's crazy. I had no idea.
The Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cleveland Browns game will trounce the Cavs Warriors in Game 7.
That's nuts. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Okay, well, like we said, Steve and I have both written articles on the Anthem protest, and if you're interested in more what we think about that, that's probably a better way to get our thoughts more succinctly. Check them out. They're on thehogsty.com. Maybe we'll try to find a way to link them or tweet them out or something because we talked about them today. But definitely interesting topic now that the rule change is official. Anything else we want to talk about? Steve, I know I don't remember if we talked about Robert Griffin III being a Raven yet.
Robert Griffin.
Why don't we bring this up? How surprised were you when you saw that good old RG3 was signed by Baltimore?
I'm pretty surprised.
Me too.
Shocked.
shocked.
After a year out and he gets signed, and he's not exactly a Joe Flacco type, but they just drafted Lamar Jackson, who's RG3 like in terms of play style. He's a runner, all of that.
He's like a
Whereas
more
Joe
durable
Flacco's
RG3.
he's about Griffin's size in terms of height and body type, whereas Joe Flacco's a big Frankenstein statue,
Right.
I was surprised, and I think it's kind of humorous, that Griffin is signed to be the backup, and then they instantly draft a week later.
Another one.
They draft Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
And so Griffin automatically becomes probably the third stringer. It's
If
kind
he
of
even
funny.
stays on the team.
If he even they don't really have another guy that's worth a darn. So he may stay on the team, but I wish the guy the best of luck. I don't have him. I'm over it. No ill will. Do your thing.
Yeah.
Me
too. I have no ill will from his
Don't
time with
marry
this
my
team.
daughter, maybe.
Yeah.
but-
Oh God. Yeah. I think he's proven he's a subpar husband at the very least.
Right. Yeah.
In addition to being a football player, I don't know. I only bring this up because I saw some report coming out of the Ravens, camp about him playing. Really doubt that he's improved much as a player.
Probably not.
And
Certainly not
I
by
really.
sitting at home for a year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how could he possibly have? I'm really surprised by this pick by the Ravens. I guess they just felt like there was value there that could be had for cheap. That's the only way I can really explain it. And like you said, they had an opening. Why not? But yeah, I would imagine him either being not with the team or third string for sure once the season starts.
I like Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson a great prospect. I think he got unfairly criticized, and I think he was a victim of racism. I said this on the show before. I think I did. I think people looked at Lamar Jackson, saw a black guy from the South with a really thick accent and a guy who has a lot of rushing yards and go, he's not a quarterback. Bill Polian did it live on national radio. Said, he's too short and he's a runner. And I think he was a victim of quarterbacking while black, which is not fair to him at all because he's actually a good quarterback.
That's really interesting. That's interesting. I like that take. Well, we'll certainly see. I think he's, like we said, he's probably better than RG3, so his prospects are good in terms of his competition.
I want to know how fast RG3 is anymore.
It'd be really interesting to see if he's lost a step or not.
How can
wasn't he training or getting interested in Olympic sprinting or something?
Was he? I didn't see that.
I heard some about it. Who knows how seriously he was taking it, but I did hear that. Running in a straight line sounds very good for him. With no contact.
No contact. Don't try to change courses.
We
know how that goes.
Exactly. Don't try to. Yeah, exactly. He could excel running in a straight line. So, hey, if it doesn't work out with the Ravens, maybe that's his option.
He can be a track coach, if nothing else.
Anything else? Let's see. We're at about an hour 8, so we've gone a little bit long. Sorry, folks.
Oops.
Anything else you want to bring up?
I don't know. I've ranted enough today.
Yeah, maybe we'll mercifully cut it off there. Okay, well, check back thehogsty.com. Lots of written content coming on as we chug through the off season. And we'll be back with you next week. So until then, take care and have a great one.
Later,
Bye.
kids.